My name is Brian Harper. I'm the Director of Communications at DAN, and I'm here today with Sarah Miller of Azul Unlimited. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
It's
thanks.
lovely to be here.
Yeah, glad you're here talking with us. So, Sarah, you are a content creator, a former dive shop owner, a avid diver, and we'd love to talk a little bit about kind of what you get up to in the dive industry.
Yeah, these days I am primarily a content creator
Mm-hmm.
and social media manager.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm behind the camera all the time, diving a lot, and sharing my experiences on YouTube and all the other platforms. But
Yeah.
it's been a wild ride. I was living in a van and I bought a sailboat a couple of months ago, and so now I'm learning everything about that life, and it's crazy and beautiful.
Amazing. Well, let's start with your entry to diving. How did you get into diving? What drew you to diving? And tell us about some early experiences of it.
I first fell in love with the ocean. I mean, I grew up by the ocean. I grew up on the central coast of California,
Mm-hmm.
so it was always there,
Mm-hmm.
but I was kind of afraid of it, if I'm totally honest. Like, we had rip tides, and I actually knew of people that experienced shark attacks. There's great whites there. And so I didn't do the whole like California surfer girl thing. But it still intrigued me. And so when I got to go to Hawaii when I was real young, I snorkeled and fell in love with just seeing all of the animals and everything. But then I didn't do anything after that. And then I think when I was like 23 or something, I went to Thailand and did what everybody does in Thailand. I went to Koh Tao.
Yep.
And I planned on being there for 4 days for my open water course and ended up staying 4 months. And I went 0 to hero, open water to dive master. Now, I always tell people I don't recommend doing that.
Same. I did the same thing. Also, don't recommend it.
Don't recommend it. It was the time of my life.
Yeah.
Loved it. But at the time, I didn't think I was going to go professional. So I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just fun diving. But once I realized that I wanted to be a professional in it, I was like, I did not learn the things that I probably should have learned,
Yeah.
So that's how I got into it. And since then, I've been diving all over the world.
Very cool. So I understand you ran a dive shop for a while in Indonesia, or maybe not a while, only briefly.
It ended up being briefly, unfortunately. Yeah. I moved over there. So I had been working in the industry for a while in California and Mexico. Mm-hmm. And then me and my business partners wanted to open a shop. And so we went to Labuan Bajo, Indonesia, which is the gateway to the Komodo National Park. Stunning, absolutely stunning. I moved over there in 2018, but we were building the boat and doing all the paperwork and the legal stuff about, getting work visas and business licenses and all that. Didn't open until April 2019. And if you're tracking that timeline, it's not great. It was heartbreaking because in the 8 months that we were open, I think it was about 8 months, we went from the newest dive shop of like a town with 30 plus dive shops to number 3 on TripAdvisor. So we just went in there real hard, promoting professional courses. We were teaching IDCs, instructor development courses, and it went really, really well. So when the country shut down and like we just kept seeing it wasn't reopening, Indonesia stayed closed for over 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was not something that a brand new company was going to sustain. Unfortunately, we weren't backed by, rich parents or businesses or whatever. Like, this was just us, like a love project. And so it ended up not lasting, but you figure it out and find a new path.
Right.
That's it.
Well, but before we move on to the new path though, like I'm so intrigued by this, the success that your business experienced, unfortunately, short-lived, but what did you learn? What do you take from that experience? Clearly a powerful learning experience, I have no doubt. And what did you take away from that? And why do you think your business was so successful?
Well, the thing that I always tell people, because a lot of divers are like, I want to work in the industry, right? I want to be a dive instructor. And the biggest thing that you have to learn if you're going to survive working abroad is patience. And just being able to go with the flow, because things just they don't work like, I mean, at least if you're from a Western country, right? Like we expect this efficiency, and it's like, no, the rest of the world does not work like that. And like, maybe that's why they're happier.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a little, maybe. So like patience was a big one. I think for me as a boss, I learned a lot about management of people, and I learned some hard lessons about my expectations of people, because I am ridiculously busy and like I like that kind of rhythm, but people don't function at that speed, right? And understanding where people are and nourishing their growth as professionals, and just understanding that. It was a hard lesson to learn at the beginning of all of that. Also just with like understanding and learning about different cultures and how to work with them. So like, especially as a woman, managing local men, it was a dynamic that I was not super aware. I mean, I was aware of it, but just had to sort of find the nuance in that. So I think those are the biggest lessons. I mean, there's so many lessons, but I think those are the ones that I take away and I kind of apply to working with people now.
Well, so as you transitioned back to North America, what did that look like? How did you decide, what the next step in your journey was going to look like?
Well, I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
I flew back home. And I was crashing in the office at my family, my family home. And it was just kind of hard. I was working a job, sending money back over to Indonesia because I was trying to keep people fed and like taken care of. Eventually moved on to another job, and I was able to start saving a tiny bit of money. And once I had a little bit of money, I found a van and I bought it so that I could have some autonomy again. So it was a choice, but it was also kind of a necessity for me because I was going crazy, right? Like anybody that's had to move back home or like move in, on a couch with friends, it's like, it's a struggle.
You realize it's time to move on.
Yeah.
I can't be back here.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate. I found a van that was just like, I literally emptied my bank account and it had just the bare minimum of what I needed to survive. And like, I had lived in some pretty rough places before. And so people were like, isn't that so hard to live in a van? I'm like, literally, this is an upgrade.
It's so
like,
cushy. It's
like
nice.
It's so cush, I loved it. It was great.
Wonderful. Well, okay. So let's talk a little bit about how you, thought about safety as a dive professional in owning a shop, where you were, catering to clients who are flying potentially around the world to dive in a world-class destination. And maybe a little bit also what then that looks like diving from a van. So starting with the, be owning a significant dive operation, how did you approach safety in your operation?
Yeah, I've been a DAN member for many years. And at the shop, we were able to provide coverage for our students, like our open water students.
Great.
So that was a part of our program. We also had, you'll have to forgive me, at the time there was a package that people could buy like daily or like 3-day kind of packages for dive insurance. Yes,
in our Asia Pacific region, we have short-term policies.
Yeah, so we offered that to our divers, and that was great because a lot of people don't, especially people who are traveling in warm places, don't know that that's a thing, and that if they have an accident, it's like this total other thing that probably isn't covered by normal insurance. So it was cool to be able to offer that. And then anybody that is traveling, I always recommend that they have some kind of travel insurance because things happen and you don't want to be just like
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. So how about safety in your operations when you're diving in your van up and down the West Coast of North America? How do you, what does the diving look like, first of all, actually? Tell us a little bit about the experience of diving, while living from your van.
It's been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I have all of this stuff on my YouTube channel.
And plug your channel.
Yeah,
Tell us.
it's Azul Unlimited,
Yeah.
Azul Unlimited. And it's, diving lessons because I'm an instructor. So I still like to put out videos that are teaching videos. Like the majority of people that find me through compass navigation for beginners video. And I just love that stuff, right? But I'm also into vlogging and sharing just the weird places that I find myself. And so I started doing that by getting a dry suit and documenting the process of me learning as a warm water diver, learning how to dry suit dive in the Pacific Northwest. And I did not think that I was going to like it there. It's dark, it's cold. Like, why? I thought I would be there for maybe 2 weeks and then move on. But I fell in love. Like, the creatures there are so cool. People don't expect that area to be so beautiful. And I love it. And the community is amazing. That's what I fell in love with. But I've also been able to take my van to, like Yellowstone and dive in the lake there and see like the spires and the, the underwater, not so much geysers, but like thermal activity. You can actually feel like, just like you see it on land. So cool. And, I've driven to Baja twice as well. So I've been getting around, but mostly just on the West Coast because
that's so cool.
This country's so big.
Yeah. So you mentioned Pacific Northwest. So Washington, Oregon, BC. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant, colors that I think people don't necessarily expect.
Yeah, you need a light. It's dark,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
but they're
beautiful.
there.
Yeah.
And so California, Baja. Tell us a little bit about the diving. What are some of your favorite places to dive along the West Coast of North America?
I mean, I love Baja. That's why my standard trips that I take people on, I have my Baja dive expedition, and I also do an LGBTQIA plus Baja dive expedition. Cool. So it's I went down there the first time and I knew that I would like Mexico. I had lived in Playa del Carmen for several years and Baja was just like my dream place. I heard all about it and everything. And I finally went, fell in love, and I was like, okay, we got to bring people down here. Yeah. Like, people have to experience this because I go during the winter. So it's humpback whale season. It's also whale shark season in La Paz. So I put together this trip where we do diving in Cabo San Lucas, Cabo Pulmo. We swim with the whale sharks and the sea lions in La Paz. And it's just this, I mean, there's so many. The biodiversity in Baja is like insane. Yep.
I was sailing out of La Paz once and I saw 47 sperm whales in one day, just on the surface.
Oh my god.
So yes, I know exactly what you mean. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah.
So, but okay, how do you approach diving operations from your van from a safety? Yeah, no, that's
I got
good.
distracted.
No, we wanted to establish first, like, why are we there? Why are we doing it? And now, how do we do it safely?
Yeah, so I always have insurance because I think every diver should have insurance. But I also have your guys's O2 kit. So I have a small bottle, but also a large bottle because I do tend to go out to remote places and I want to be able to, have the time on the oxygen if something happens. Obviously, if something bad happens, I need to call in people to come get me. But hopefully, luckily I haven't had any accidents, but I always have that. Let's see what else. I always communicate with people on land, telling them when I'm going to go diving and when I'm expected to be back.
Great policy.
Yeah. And it's important because I solo dive a lot. And so like, it's just me out there and I need to make sure that people know what my plan is. And if there's anybody, like if it's a campsite or like a national park, like I talk to the people who are on land directly there, even though they don't know me, they know what my plans are.
So I understand that recently you bought a sailboat. So tell us about that.
She is a Gulf 32. So she's a pilot house sailboat, big, heavy boat. The plan is to do coastal cruising. I am still just in a slip in Seattle. So I'm brand new to all of this. I'm learning a lot. And my goal is to set her up to be able to dive from her and just go all over the place. It's a long process and I don't know what the timeline is going to be, but I'm just sharing about the whole experience online.
Good. And how's your audience liking the transition from the van stuff to the sailboat stuff?
They're here for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. People are so excited. I think, the van was a necessity, right? Like I needed to get a space. I wasn't making enough money to have an apartment. So it was just like a necessity, right? But the boat is very intentional. Like I have been working so hard and saving, and like this has been the goal for a while. So living in the van, even though I loved it, like I did it for over 3 years, okay? But I always wanted to be by the water. And unfortunately, in the United States, it is not easy to live in a vehicle by the water. We're not really allowed anywhere. People that live in vans tend to go off into BLM land, like in the mountains, in the desert and everything. And I never wanted to be there. I wanted to be on the ocean. So that's why like the sailboat has been my thing. Like I've been watching other YouTubers and I'm like, that's what I want. Because I'm very fortunate at this point. I work for companies online. Everything is online. I have Starlink, so I'm able to do that from anywhere. And what my heart needs is to be on the water. Even like in the marina, I'm so happy. Like it's just, the gentle rocking
and the sound of the halyards, the clanking against the mast. Yeah, I like it. I mean, people should secure their halyards so you don't have to listen to that all night long. But hearing it a little bit is nice. Yeah.
Totally. So it's a really welcome transition.
Seagulls.
Yeah.
So what does diving operations look like from your boat?
I haven't done it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but the game plan is hopefully to get a small compressor, have that in the space, and a couple of tanks and my gear. Like I don't need much. I'm very simple when it comes to just my dive gear and what I need. So that's sort of the plan for scuba gear. I still need to set up the stern because if anybody has been on a sailboat before, they're not the best to dive from. Like they just aren't made for that. So I need to get a proper ladder and swim step and everything. But that's hopefully going to happen in the next few months so that I can really test it out and like go explore the San Juan Islands. And I'd really love to go to God's Pocket on Vancouver
BC,
Island. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, good luck getting there soon. So what do you think about from a safety perspective when diving from your boat or, as you anticipate that, and what changes or adjustments might there be from the way you have been diving, when living in the van for the past few years? Yeah.
So I'm not planning on being alone on the boat. So that's one thing. I will have all of my safety gear, like surface marker buoy. I want to get like a Garmin InReach so that I can communicate. I should have had that honestly from the get-go. But things are expensive and I wasn't in the position to have that when I first started. But also I'm planning to buy a dinghy so that I can, have surface support when I go diving. And, I have all of my normal safety gear, like the oxygen and first aid kit. I've actually been using the Dan first aid kit way more in the boat than the van. Like I think I still have a scar from bashing my shin on this. Oh my gosh, it was such a mess. But I use the first aid kit all the time now.
Great.
Maybe not so great.
Yeah. Well, better have it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. Okay, so how about as a content creator, how do you incorporate, safety, responsibility, things like that, while still making, fun, exciting content? You obviously, you're building an audience and people are coming back for more because what you're doing is exciting. But how do you balance that responsibility of demonstrating good practice?
Safety and being a conservative diver has always been a thing for me. Like working, especially, I've done technical diving and cave diving. Working in Komodo was intense. That was the hardest place that I have worked as a dive guide just because of the currents. We had up currents and down currents, and part of my job was just to like be a counselor to people who were crying on the boat because they were so overwhelmed, and like helping them and making, letting them supporting them to develop as divers to be able to handle that and to use their skills and be safe while doing that. It's always been a big part of our brand, right? Like when we had Azul Unlimited as a physical location, like that was something that set us apart, I think, from other dive shops. Like safety was huge for us and professionalism. We were sticking to standards, which a lot of shops weren't at the time, and making sure that divers who went through our courses were like learning the stuff and being, you see taglines of thinking divers, right? Divers that aren't just, checking the boxes, like they're actually thinking and participating in the sport.
Internalizing these messages.
Yes. Yeah. So that's always been huge for me. And I think online, the reason why I have such a like dedicated group of followers, because I really do, like my channel's not huge, but like people really follow my stuff. And I think it's because I am not afraid to show when I mess up and when I don't know things, because I think that's very important as divers. There's a lot of ego in diving, and I just don't understand why. Like we're going underwater and blowing bubbles, so I like to share when I don't know things. I like to share when I mess up, and to share the struggles that I've had, because I have had struggles as a diver. And so I think it gives people almost like permission to be vulnerable in that space too, and like to ask the questions so that they don't have an accident because they didn't know something, right? That's part of, like, that's what I want from people, to just feel like they're in a community where they're safe to ask the questions that they might think are quote unquote dumb. Right. Because man, you get online sometimes, like especially on certain platforms, and people will tear you apart for not being perfect. And it's insane. Like we all have to start somewhere.
Well, this is huge. And I think being in communications for Divers Alert Network, trying to destigmatize mistakes is huge, because so many dive accidents have a component of social pressure to them that, unpacking that and trying to disentangle the social pressure that people inevitably experience. It's a human thing to feel pressure to go along with things and just, do your best when maybe you should be speaking up. And so it's really great to see you really using that as a way of pointing out what divers can do better and how they can better keep themselves safe. So Sarah, we've really appreciated the opportunity to partner with you. Can you tell us a little bit about this partnership from your perspective? What, made you interested in partnering with Dan, and how do you feel like, our missions or philosophies align?
Yeah, I was really excited, honestly. Like I said, I've been a member for a long time, and I think it's something like I really try to only share things on my platforms that I legitimately use, right? And that I believe in. And so this was sort of natural to me, and for me as a content creator, it's important, or at least it's one of my priorities, to develop professional relationships that are long-term, right? Like I don't care about a quick buck or whatever. Like I want to establish relationships. And that's exactly what you guys have given to me, just this sort of trust. And I wanted, pay that forward and share how I have experienced you guys to my followers. Cause I think that it's just something that everybody needs to have if they're diving, so it's been a wonderful experience, and I look forward to working together long term.
Yeah, let's keep it up. So tell our audience where they can find you and learn more about what you're doing and what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I mentioned my YouTube channel. That's my primary social media. It's Azul Unlimited, AZUL Unlimited. That's blue in Spanish. And I am on pretty much all the social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Is that all of them? I think so. And then my website is azulunlimited.com, and that's where you can find information for my expeditions that are coming up. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah,
Cool.
expeditions and videos. I do have a Patreon community if people like my content and they want to just support me in a way that's like really impactful. I have an amazing Patreon community.
Wonderful.
And they're all talking to each other and like diving together. It's very cool.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, once again, I'm Brian Harper. I've been here with Sarah Miller from Azul Unlimited. And Sarah, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.